Hello everyone, and we are going to learn how we can create this cool effect that you could see on our mouse, and when we hover on something it just turns into this big button kind of thing. And this is obviously not an image, but I just wanted to show you that, let's say if you had a gallery and you want it to be clickable, you could just add something like this. For video you could just change something like this, and this nice effect that you could do, you could remove the delay, you could remove your mouse, and you could add your custom icons or any image or any text inside of this. And it's very easy to do, and I also show you how you can change the configuration so that it fixes to your design, and how you could customize it so that you could make it to your design. And also I'll show you how you can add like more stuff into it rather than just being like video and image like this. So let's get started. And for this tutorial I am using Elementor page builder, but it simply works with anything. You could just do it with just coding. If you are doing without any page builders or anything, you could do it with just coding. You could use any other page builder. Just try to replicate the steps in the settings that your page builder has given, or anything that you want. Just some slight changes would be there here and there, but typically everything is just same. Now another thing is that currently I'm using Elementor Pro, because you do need to have Elementor Pro for this, because you're using custom CSS, you're using attributes, value and all. So if you don't have Elementor Pro, the link is in the description, and if you use the link in the description to buy Elementor Pro, I get a small commission, and you are not paying anything extra. You're just paying the same amount, but I just get a small commission for it. And that way you could support me, because I don't earn anything from YouTube. So consider liking and subscribing so that I can keep making videos like this. So now I am using this page. You could see I have Elementor template on my website. You could see like this one. If you go on my product page like this, you could find like lots of Elementor templates that you want if you want to get it for free. So like image accordion, floating button and stuff. So let's just get started. I am in my page builder like this. Now currently I'm going to show you how to do it for the single page, and then at the end of the video I'll show you how you can apply it to your whole website. So let's create an HTML widget. If you're using codings, you will know how to add it to your own website. So for Elementor we are using HTML widget. Now inside of this we will create a div. Div is basically like creating a container. We will give it a class, and we will give it a class called custom cursor. Let's close this, and we already got our div. So basically it's like creating a container like this, and this container is a div, and then we are giving a custom CSS to here. Okay. Now inside of this, in the div I'll add a text. You don't need to add it, but for time being, so that we can visualize it what we are doing, I'll add the text, else it will not show anything. The next thing we want to do is we need to style this. So let's add style, and here we can add our custom CSS. And this would work even if you don't have Elementor Pro, but for the function which is like this all functions, you will need Elementor Pro. But we can do the lots of common stuff without having Elementor Pro. So let's add custom class, custom CSS, and let's add curly brackets. Let's do enter, and here we will do our settings. So let's do width of 100 pixels. Let's do height of 100 pixels. Let's do a background color of red so that we can see it. And we are already done with creating some of the stuff. So let's do a border radius 50%. So we already got a circle. So let's just keep it like this for time being, and let's go to our JavaScript. Okay. So currently, before we go to JavaScript, let me show you what we are going to do. So if I give this one a position fixed, so let's give it position fixed. You could say disappeared. So let's just give it top 0 and give left 0. Now basically what does fixed do? It just adds it to the document. So whatever your page is, it just makes it to it just does not take any space, and it just places it at whatever like location you have used on top on left, or top and left. So you can see that it is being on the top left completely. Now we want it to be on top of everything, right? We don't want it to be behind. So let's just add a z index. Let's do 10,000. We can give like any higher value, and now it is on top like this. Now if we give left 100 pixels like this, you could say it's now on the left side from 100 pixels. If we give top on, let's say 500 pixels, You could see now it is on 500 pixels from top, and if I give 300, 200, it just does stuff like this. Okay, so we will actually keep it 0 because we are actually going to change this value with our JavaScript so that it actually follows our mouse. So basically we will be changing this dynamically, and it will basically change based on our mouse value. So the first thing that we want to do in our script is we will type document, we will do query selector. Query selector is basically just taking the value or taking the CSS in our JavaScript so that we can reference it, add a single quotation, and type our custom cursor. So this one, so that we are taking this value into here. Now we need to store this somewhere, so we will just call this one a constant, and let's call it custom cursor. Now remember that JavaScript is case sensitive, so typically the way we write JavaScript is we write the first as lower sensitive or lowercase sensitive, and the second or third, whatever words that pop up from now on, like custom cursor design, like this. So we'll keep the first letter be bigger, and it's just a good practice to do it. You don't need to do it, but it's just common practice. Let's add our colon. Now again, I'm also new to JavaScript. It's only been like few months or weeks before I've learned it, so just ignore if I be a bit stuttering, but if I'm stuttering a bit when explaining this stuff. Now the next thing we need to do is we want this to be following our mouse. So the way we do it is we add an event listener to our mouse. So let's type document dot add event listener, and this all are like pre-built functions on JavaScript. In JavaScript, the function that we want to, or the event that we want to listen to, is called mouse move, and it is also pre-built function, and we will store this in our E. We need to type this equal to and then bracket. Then we need to write our function, so we will add curly brackets and do enter like this. And this is commonly what we use, like this. So we add like a bracket, and then we add a curly bracket inside it which has the function like this. So on mouse move, what we need to change is we want to change the top and left value. So let's type custom cursor, which is like this one that we have added around here. We want to change the styling, and we want to change the top value. Let's do equal to. And now before I do this one, I want to show you guys something. So let me do console log and E. So this way we will be able to see what is stored in E. Okay, so whatever is the mouse move, or whatever the inbuilt function is mouse move, it is stored in E. So let's first see what is in E. Let's do inspect. Let's go to a console, and here you could see the mouse event. You could see now inside of this, if I extend a mouse move, you could see there are lots of functions. You could see there are lots of things that are getting calculated. We just want client X and client Y. And what client X is basically the location of your mouse from the left of your screen, and client Y is the location of your mouse in our Y axis. So we will do is we will remove the console log, and here we will type again the custom cursor style top equal to. Now we saw that we want our client Y, which is like this value. Where is it? Client Y, this one. So let's type it same client and Y capital, plus we want it to be in pixels, so we'll type pixels like this. So whatever value it is around here, so let's say it is 368, it will do 368 and then do pixels. So 368 pixels would be added on our top value around here. Let's copy this and paste it around here and do it for the left value. Okay, so left, and we just need to change this to X. So let's see updating it and seeing how it works. Now I just had to fix some values around here because I had just typed it wrong, but make sure you type it correctly. And now you could see it actually moves it. So let's see if I just remove my client X and keep only client Y, what would happen? You could see it is now copying the Y value only, no X. So let's add it again like this. And now let's remove our border radius and keep it 0, and let's see what's happening. Let's refresh this page. Now you can see what's happening. It is following our mouse perfectly, but we want it to be in center. To make it center, it's very easy. In our CSS, we will just make the top be 50% and left be 50%. Now you might think that this should work, but it would not work. And let me show you why. You could see now it's not working. But what we can simply do is, because top and left value are actually being changed like this. So actually this one does not matter even. You could keep it 0. We need to actually do transform, translate, minus 50% and minus 50% and then this one. So what's this doing? So now you could see that on our mouse, what we are doing is we are moving this square 50% on the left and 50% on the top, so that the circle is moved 50% on the left and 50% on the top, and that way it is in the center like this. So let's just do update, and you could see now we are in the center. Obviously top and left value you could keep it 0, but usually when we use, like, we are not using this effect, we usually use like 50% around here. If you are not doing this one effect, if you are not using script to change it, change the top and left value, and that just makes it be in the center. Let's make it 50% again so that it is like circle. So the next thing that we are going to do is, if we go around here, you could see that if I leave my mouse, it just stays there like this. We don't want it. We want it to be disappearing when we are outside this. So for that, we can simply do one thing. We can add an event listener to this page completely again. So let's do it on top instead. Let's do the same thing that we have done below. Add event listener. Let's do mouse enter, which is when mouse enters the screen. Let's do comma, and we can actually keep this empty. We don't need to add E around here. And let's do this one. Let's add a curly bracket and do enter. So you can see we are basically doing the same thing, but instead of E, we just typed this one, which is basically like running a function, I think. I don't know the right terminologies. We will type custom cursor again. Make sure the spelling and the case are same, capitalizing and all. Let's do style opacity. Style opacity equal to 1, because it is entering. So we want it to be visible on our page. Let's copy this. Let's paste this and let's do mouse leave and let's do 0. So let's see what happens when we do this. As soon as I move my mouse outside, it just disappears. Now obviously I don't want it to be so instantly. So we will go on our CSS and type transition opacity, and I'll give it, let's say, 0.5 seconds. So it will take 0.5 seconds to go from 0 to 1 rather than instantly going from 0 to 1 and 1 to 0 in the opacity. So you can see, looks cool. It just pops up and goes down like this. If you want it to be faster, you could lower the value. Rather than 0.5 seconds, you could make it 0.2, 0.1. If you want it to be even slower, you could make like 1 second, 2 seconds, or whatever you want. Now the next thing we are going to learn is how we can make it scale when we are on a certain element. So let me just take this image and give it a CSS class of item. And inside of the HTML, we are going to go at the bottom. But before that, we actually need to add this in our JavaScript. So we need to reference the, we need to reference the CSS class in our JavaScript. So let's just call it items. And simply I'm calling it items. You could call it anything, but I'm using plural because there are going to be lots of different elements that would have that scaling effect. So just a normal English language that I'm using, nothing crazy. Document query selector. Let's type dot items, shift dot item, because we have called it item around there. Let's again add an event listener. Add event listener, mouse enter. Let's do like E, or maybe not E because we have already used it. Let's just keep it empty and let's do this. Also we need to add our function where we will type so curly bracket and stuff like this. If you are getting confused about where to add this, it just gets common when you like try to type it yourself. It just gets common. I also sometimes get confused what I have to add around here, so I just reference it by googling. Now the difference between this one and the items is that right now we use document, right? We don't want it to be based on document, which is document is basically our whole page. We don't want it to be, we just want it to be based on our items, and we have already called it items. So let's just add it items around here, and that way we will not be using document. We will be using whenever it this event listener whenever it is entering on our items like this. And here we will just add the code, which is like the common one that we are using. Custom cursor, let's do style, let's do transform equal to. Now because we are using transform, we have to use this thing, single colon, and here we will type scale. In the brackets we will do 2. Okay, so let's see if it works. It works. Okay, as soon as I hovered on this one, it is not being instant. Okay, so let's just fix it. We need to go into this one. We need to give in our transform, you could see, give comma and then type scale 1. So 1 is basically the default sizing. So let's try it. And now you could see it works instantly. Now another thing is the scale 2 works, but we also want it to be transition. So let's just add a comma, do scale, and I'll give it 0.5 seconds. So it takes 0.5 seconds to scale up, and you could see it didn't take 0.5 seconds because we actually use scale. We had to use transform, my bad. You could see the effect. It just scales up very slowly. It takes 0.5 seconds. I'll make it 0.3 because I like it faster. But now what we need to do is, because it is not being in center, you could see, we also need to do is add this translate, this one completely in here. So let's just add it. Let's just remove it. I don't know why this happens, but basically this value is being fixed, and then this one should change as it scales up. So let's just add it so that it gets into center when it scales up. Now obviously don't add a comma around here. You could see we have added comma in CSS, but we don't add a comma around here. Also we don't add a comma in CSS, my bad. I don't know what's happening. When we use transform, we don't add a comma. Now for some reason it is being a bit delayed around here. So sometimes even if I make it on top of it, it is not being showing perfectly for some reason, but let's just fix it. So first thing what we are going to do is we also want to add something called mouse leave function, because when we leave we want it to be our default size, right? So let's type mouse leave. I just copied the same code, and then let's type mouse leave, and let's just make it 1, scale 1. Okay, now you might be thinking like for some reason this code might not work for you too sometime like this. Okay, so why is this happening? Simply because this cursor or whatever this one is actually being used as it is being between your elements and whatever your element is, for example this image, and between your mouse. So even though this circle exists, it is still using some, or it is being between your stuff, so it is not considering it as hovered on this one. So what we are going to do is we are basically going to give this one pointer events none. So basically we are saying that this should, anything or the mouse should pass through this element. It shouldn't be blocking anything between this stuff. So now we can see it just works much more better. You can see, because right now, before that, this element was actually being taking the mouse hover effect to itself rather than being on the item, and not, the mouse hover wasn't passing through it. So now it just works perfectly without any issues, you could see. So now let's do another thing. Now I want it to be having what you call an icon inside of this one. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to make this div. So you can see I added a space between this slash div, because right now this is same as adding a container and then adding inside another container like this. So this one is div and this inside is another div. So that is same as doing that. So we added a div, and inside of this we will add another div, and we will call this, I'll call this video icon, or let's do image icon. Image icon. And inside of this I want my image icon to be. Now you could use any HTML that you want to add around here. You could add image, you could add icon, but for me I'm just going to use font awesome icon. But you could just use anything. It doesn't have to be just this font awesome icon. So if you Google for font awesome icon, let's do the wave the latest. You could see we get this HTML that we can just copy and then paste it inside of this one. So you could see the icon is being visible around here. So let's just remove the test like this. The image has been visible. We could change the display to be flex. We could do justify content to be center and do align items to be center like this. So now it just makes everything inside of this content in the center. To be honest, we don't really need to do that because we are going to use absolute value, but I'll still add it in case you want to not use absolute value and you're trying to do something custom. Now we need to customize the image icon. So let's go down. Let's type image icon and then we will customize it. So let's give it a size. So because we are using font icon, we can use font size. And we can make it bigger, let's say 40 pixels like this. Okay. Now if you were using image and all, you will need to use scale property. So that is completely different. But because I'm using like a font awesome basically converts this icon into like fonts. So I can use font size. But again, if you're using image and all, you just use scale and it just works perfectly. But right now you could see that if I copied this one, like this, it just turns into this stuff. So we don't want it to do. So what we will do is we will give it position absolute, so that it is not taking any space. And we are not using fixed because we want this one to be inside of our container. If we use fixed, it just gets outside the container. But if we use absolute, it stays inside this container but doesn't take any space. I'll change the second icon to be an video icon. So let me just search for a video icon. Let's choose for free. Let's do this one and let's copy it. We can try a different one. Let's try this one instead. And let's change it to video icon. So you can see that they are both placed on top of each other because we use position absolute. That icon is not even being visible. Let's just use a normal font, normal one. Okay, so now that one should be visible like this. We can give this one a color that we want to. I'm going to give it black, but if you want to do white, you could do white. I'm going to keep it black because I'm going to change this circle into white anyway. So this is all we need to do for time being. But let's say if your thing was not in the center, we will need to do what I said before, which is do 50%, left 50%, do transform, to translate, open bracket, minus 50%, Let's close this and see what happens. Make sure you spell everything correctly, and now you could say it is in center. So this one is usually what we use to make it center. Now it is in center, but another thing that I want to do is I want it to have opacity 0, like this. So now it is just hidden, and I also gave it transition opacity. So it takes 0.3 seconds to get to 1 opacity when we hover on this one. So if we go into our items, we can actually go in here. Now we need to reference our items. So we are already added our items around here. So let's do items dot style dot opacity equal to 1. Let's do update, and let's see what happens. Obviously it would not work because this is not items, this is image icon. Okay, so we need to actually reference this. I was being stupid again. So we will just add a constant new one. We'll call this item image. So stuff like this, so that we can remember it. Or I'll just use what I've used around here, which is, I've just called it image icon. So let's just do that. It's easier to remember. So let's do image icon. And inside of this, we want this CSS class. Okay, and here we will simply change this to image icon because we want to change it for that CSS class. So let's see what happens. So now we can see why it's happening, because we added in mouse leave. We wanted to add it in mouse enter, which is here. So we want it to be 1 when it enters our items, but we want it to be 0 when it leaves our items, which is item class around here. Now obviously this is not perfect because we actually need to do more stuff. So you can see how this works. Every time we go into here, it works nicely like this. But this one will create an issue that if we have multiple items with video, different stuff, it will just show icon which is like an image icon, which can be quite annoying. Okay, and another thing I want you guys to know before we do anything, let's say if I make the opacity to 1 like this, and here we will change our scale. Not here, this one, because we want to change like the main class. Let's make it 2, and let's say if I remove this one just to see it, you can see the icon does not fill in the center, right? So what we can simply do is, in our image icon, we can just give it like a margin on top. The reason why it's not in center is just because how Font Awesome adds the icons, or Elementor adds it. It just adds a small spacing at the at the bottom. So if we do, let's say 5 pixels. Now if you see that it is changing like too much, it's because we have scaled it. It's actually just very small. We are just scaling it. So let's make it 3 pixels and it just works. So, and we are just scaling it. So 2 pixels just looks better. Okay, so let's just keep it like this and just make it 1 again. And let's make the opacity be 0. So now it feels a bit more centered like this. We just added a margin on top, nothing crazy. Now the issue with this one is that it would not work if we had multiple items. Okay, so if I add, let's say, CSS class around here, which is item, you could see that it is working for this one, but it is not working for this one, because when we use when we use query selector, it only uses the one that is only the first class which is present at the top. So what we will do is, in the item section, we'll type query selector all, and that would select everything. But now this would not work. So this code needs to actually iterate on every single one. So if we just update it, it would just not work because we are using query selector all, A capital. like this. You could say it's not working. So what we simply use, I also don't quite remember, we use this one. Okay, so we simply type items, which is the class that we have created around here, which is items. Then we type for each, so it takes for each element. Then we open our bracket, and remember the way we created the document event listener, it's the same way. And here we can type anything that we want. So I'll just call it item, but you could actually call it anything. It doesn't have to be called item, it's just calling the function. We do this icon or whatever this arrow is called. We create our curly brackets and then we close it like this. And inside of this curly bracket, we add our code. So it's same as the way we added our, we added our document event listener, but this is how it iterates on every single thing. And let's just copy this one and then paste it on top of it. And inside of this, we'll just paste this code like this. So this one is basically running in a loop. So let's try this now. Now you could see that it is not working even though we added this code, because right now we are still referencing to this one. We actually need to reference to this one. So let's just call it item and item like this. So for each item, so anything is or whatever is inside of this, for each of it we created anything random stuff. So it doesn't have to be called item, you could call it E, A or anything, but just change it to A around here too. But I'll call it item because I just need to keep it like much more. It just needs to be grouped up closer so that we remember what is what. Let's see, and now you could see that it just works for both of this item like this. So now we got our code to work following our mouse. It disappears when we go out, it just pops up when we go in. It just shows our icon when we go on our specific value like this. But what we now need to do is it needs to figure out which actually what element we are actually hovering on. So to do this, we actually use something called data attributes. And if we go around here and go into attributes, you need to add your attributes in here. With JavaScript, you add it in a different way. So if you were actually using normal CSS, or sorry, normal HTML, you will probably be adding like this. So like data, let's call it data type equal to like this, and we will call it, let's say, image, because this is an image. So this is how you would do it if you are using HTML, and I think it would still work in this HTML, but the way I like to use it is with the Elementor. But if you are using that way, you could do it. And with Elementor, you just type it in a bit different way. So you type data type and then you create this straight icon, so straight line. So you could see around here using this line, this character, it is available at the left of your enter, and you have to press like, which is like /, but if you type with shift, it will use the second value like this. And our data type is image. So this one is an image. Okay. And let's imagine this one is an video. So in this one, we will type data attribute. So data type, we will type it to be video. So it is same as typing data type equal to video. And this is what we add in our HTML basically. But this is what we will use around here. And what we will do is we will check items. So wherever we have used the CSS class item, you can see like this, we will choose, we will find that item, and then inside of this we will check what data set it or what data type it is, and based on the data type we will use our this class. Okay, so right now I want to create another class which I had done before, but I'll add again. I'll call this video icon, and here we will use the video icon. So I'll just copy it from the old code. Just go on to Font Awesome site and you will get the code, and you could see the video icon is already being visible. So what we can simply do is we can use the same CSS that is used around here, but if you want to use some different CSS, you could just create it again by typing .video icon and doing the steps that we did here. And that way you would have like more control on each other, but I'll just keep it on the same ones, and that way it would use the same properties to the video icon. So let's type video icon. Spelling should be correct, video icon, and now you could see it is just disappeared completely. Now let's say rather than creating like two complete stuff, you could create one, but there's one other stuff that if there is something common, like say font size is common, position absolute is common, color, top, transform is common, what we can simply do is we can remove the margin from here, and then we can create again another style, and then just add margin around here, and that way we can actually control just the margin from this way. Both of this icon would use these values, but both of this value would have different margin because it is not used around here. And that way you could use the common stuff in like one stuff. I'll keep it like this. So right now let's just go in here and see what happens if we just hover on stuff like this. Probably it should show both icons, but it is not showing. So why is it not showing? If we go into our code, you could see that we are only changing for an image icon. So we are not changing it for our video icon class. So you could see we are only given it for the image icon. So it is not changing for video icon class. So what we are simply going to do is, instead of this one, which is like mouse enter and mouse leave, we are actually going to create an if else statement. So let me just remove this completely. And here we will type if. We will add a true value. So if data type, so the way we find it is by typing .item .data set, and if the data set is image, so if item.data set is image, it will give like a true value. So it will say if this value is true, run this code. Okay, so if data set is image, it will run this code. Okay, my bad, I'm being stupid because I also learned this like very early. What we need to actually search is what the dataset type is. So we have called it dataset type, right? So if we go in here, we have given this one data called type. So data is something that is pre-built in JavaScript, and we just give a name to it. So we are giving the data called type. So if we go in here, go to our code, we actually want to see if our item dataset type is equal to, and for equal to we add three equal tos, so that we are checking if the left value and the right value are same or not. If we just use equal to, you could see what we are doing is we are using the right value and we are copying, we are just using that value and copying it in the left value. But when we use triples equal to, we are just checking if left and right are equal, LHS equal to RHS, left hand side equal to right hand side. We want to check if it is an image. So we will add it in a single quotation and let's update it, and it will check if the data type is image. And you see, if I hover on it, it is not showing the video, but if I hover on it, it is showing the image. So if it's an image, it is just making it be opacity 1 like this, but if we are going on it, it is not running this code. So now what we can simply do is, we can now go even further and type else if. So we are not using if else statement. So if else, the way it works is that if this is true, run this, else run this one. Okay, so if this was false, it would run this one. We don't have any false value, so we don't want to create that, but instead we will call else if. And here we will check item.dataset.type equal to is a video. So remember, we typed video around here, and it is just going to check if the data type is called video. And you could see we have called it video. Let's create open brackets, and here we will just copy this one again, paste it, but now we need to add a video icon here like this. But it would not work because we have never created a constant value for it. Basically, we have not taken the styling which is present in CSS and we have not moved it to JavaScript. So when we move from CSS to JavaScript, it converts the CSS into your JavaScript function or JavaScript value, not function. So constant video icon, and then let's call it video icon, which is like the same as this one. And around here you could see style opacity 1. So it will check if it's image, it will, if it's image, it will only change the opacity to 1 for the image for this one, and if it finds that it is video, it will only change the opacity 1 to this one. And here you could see how this works. Now we all obviously need to do is we need to copy this function, which is for each, like this, or let's just type it again so that we get used to it. Okay, so we type items for each. Let's make sure it is items for each, call it item again. Let's do this one, and then curly bracket, let's add a semicolon at the end, and inside the curly bracket we add our functions, and our function is basically this one. So let's copy this, let's just do this, and inside of this one we will just, instead of mouse leave, we will type mouse enter. Oh sorry, we will keep it mouse leave, my bad. We will change this one. So items for each item, item dot add event listener mouse leave, custom should be scale 1, that is by default this is what we should do, but here we should add our else if statement, which is if, well, now here's the thing, we don't really need to do this one. I don't know why even was I doing this, but we actually don't need to do let's say we don't need to check if it's like a data set or anything, because anything that is not hoverable, so which is mouse leave, so anything when we are outside item class, we need it to be in our default size. So we don't need to do else if statement, we can just keep it like this. We just need to add opacity to be 0, like this. So let's do update. Let's see what happens. And you could see now it just works. We don't need to do else if statement because there's no else if. Every time it should just disappear. And you could see we already got that effect. Now how about we add a delay into this one? And before we add delay, let me just tell you guys one thing, that if you want to add more icons, all you simply need to do is add your div class like this, add a new section, just copy this div class, add your new icon and your everything HTML around here, just copy paste this one, then you do CSS styling for it, then you add another constant value for it like this, and just go down, and then here we just type again else if, and let's say if the item dot data set type equal to like this, and then call it link. And you could do is like have that CSS change to this one and just add a CSS class called link, sorry, not CSS class, a data type to link on that what you call, wherever you have used the item class. So basically make sure whenever you want the scale effect to happen, it should have the CSS class item and it should have an attribute value so that the appropriate icon is shown on it. Now another thing is, simply we want to add a delay to this one. Okay, so where do we add the delay? So the delay, which is like you could see there's a delay happening where I move my mouse, it's not like instantly following my mouse. So we can simply do is our event listener, which is for mouse move, we can just give it a small delay. So rather than having the same value, it would be using the previous value slowly, like a few milliseconds slowly. So let's, in our mouse move event listener, we will call set time out. We will call a bracket. Inside of this there's a function which is empty, so this is like empty function. We now close the bracket, and inside of this we add our curly bracket, and inside of this we add our code. But before that we need to make sure this function has this equal to like this. It is same as every single thing that we have done around here. and this code we will just run it inside of this one like this, and we just add a semicolon, and inside of this we add a comma like this at the end of the curly bracket, and here we just add a delay of, let's say, 300 milliseconds. So if we update, let's see what happens. You can see it's a bit delay by 300 milliseconds like this. Now rather than 300, let's just make it 100 so that it looks like much more cleaner. Let's try it in an incognito so that it is not running the HTML, the admin page code, and you can see it runs pretty nicely. Now another thing is you want to now make it look cleaner, right? It is now very big right now. So what we can do is we can actually change the transform scale to, let's say, 0.2, so that it is like smaller like this inside of this one, which is, let me just move this. So when we leave the mouse, we have added a scale to be 1. Okay, so if we don't change around here, let's see what would happen. Okay, now you can see the this circle is a lot smaller, and if I go on it, it gets bigger. But now when we move out, it's not being to the right size, because when we leave the mouse, we have given it scale of 1, which is like the default scale. So I'll just make it go 0.2. 0.2 is way too small. Let's do 0.3. And let's change this one to be 0.3, so that the initial size and the mouse leave size is the same, and that's all we need to do, and it just looks better. And we can change this to be white. We can change the icon to be white, or this stuff to be white like this. But because my page is also white, I'll keep it red for now. But if you want to change it to white, just change this to white like this in the background section, and you can see how nicely it works. Now in my code that I will be giving you, there are some stuff like this, and if you see that I have actually commented this out. So basically if you add a comment, okay, this is way too messy, so I'll fix this when I give you guys. Basically if you're using Elementor, lots of stuff actually uses like this cursor icon or this one, so it is always going to be visible. But what you could do is you could add CSS to just hide it. So what we can do is, if we just wanted to do for item, we could do cursor and type none. Basically you could see that it changes to the pointer cursor. It's called cursor pointer, which is this hand icon. So if we would have typed it pointer, it would have shown this hand icon, which is by default like this. But right now you could see that nothing's showing. This cursor is not, this mouse should not show. So you could do is, you could also type body, make the cursor to be none, and that way your mouse would just not be visible. But I like to keep it like this for time. I just like to put it at the end because it is not being visible in our Elementor editor like this, because the scripts sometimes don't run in the editor. You need to check it on the live page. So now you could see my mouse is visible, but now it's not visible, and now we just have this this icon. And if you want to remove this hand, you will need to do this cursor, this one, items cursor none. And you could actually do is you could add this code, which will be available in whatever I've given you, and it will remove the cursor from a links, from the buttons, from inputs and stuff. But if there is anything else that needs to be removed, wherever you will need to use like CSS to remove it like this. So now the question is how we can run it on our whole page, right? So it's easier to do it, and the way you do it is, if you have Elementor Pro that you could get from the description, you can use the inbuilt function which is called custom code like this. But let's say if you don't have this Elementor Pro, you could go to plugins, add new. You could install a plugin called WP Code. Install this one, WP Code, insert header and footer, custom snippet and stuff. Go to code snippet, go into code snippet. And here you could add your own functions that you want to add or snippets that you want to add. So let's just copy this all. Let's do add code snippet. I'll also show you how to do with Elementor Pro. And the best part about using Elementor Pro is that you're using less plugins, right? And because you're using less plugins, you have less chance of your site breaking. You have faster speed of your website. There is less chance of plugin conflicts. Basically, just a better thing that to do is use less plugins. So get Elementor Pro. You will just be using a custom CSS. You will get so much functions, and use the link in description to support me. So I'll just use like cursor, circle. You can name it anything. Keep it on HTML and just copy it like this. Make it active. Instead of site-wide header, we will do site-wide body and just save it. And if we go into our site, you could see that now we are using our own cursor that is given. Now remember that if you are removing the cursor, it's better to not add the delay because it just looks weird. You see, it just looks weird because it is delayed. We don't want to have delay if you are not showing the mouse icon. So make sure you do that. I'm going to make it inactive so that it does not run on my site. Let's just copy this code. Let's just refresh this page and see if it is gotten to the default one. Let's refresh it again and see. Let me just change my code. Refresh my cache, I mean. And you could see now it is showing my mouse. In the custom code, which is in Elementor Pro, you could type add new. Call it anything that you want. And then paste it. And I want to paste it in my body like this. Publish, and we can do for entire site and do save. Now if we refresh, we can see we got our code to work like this. And it just looks nicer. And to just remove it, we can just remove it by making it not be published, by making it draft like this. Or we can simply just delete it. So you can see now it just does not work. So I'll just delete it because I don't want it to run on my website. So that's how you can just make it. The code is in the description. Consider liking and supporting so that I can make more videos like this. And if you want any products, any blog articles that you want to read based on Elementor, like this, creating animations and stuff, I have lots of features around here. So make sure you check my website and like and subscribe for more. Thank you.